Bonsoir, Julien Beth Besai. Good evening to you, televiewers. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the 8 p.m. bilingual newscast on Equinox Television. In our headlines, leaders of opposition political parties have called for international sanctions against the government of Cameroon and equally government authorities as a result of the escalating armed conflicts in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon, equally the inability to foster democratic processes and gross violations of human rights in the nation. And we'll be telling you how the United Nations Security Council is expected to hold on the 13th of May 2019, with the Anglophone crisis expected to be at the center of discussion. Meantime, the United States has set up an informal cycle to try to resolve the close to 3 years old armed conflicts. More in this newscast. For the plus, bonsoir vous, Julien Beth Besai, and to you, televiewers, good evening to you once more. Thanks for staying with us. We begin with news in the Chateau d'Eau neighborhood in the Douala 4 municipality, to be precise, in Bonaberry, where a family is still in grief and consternation after a wall collapsed over the weekend and fell on a mother and her child. The family is now in a deep agony. They were returning home. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
They were on their way back home, but they will never see home again. Madame Taku Florence and her 19-year-old son have been killed by a wall that collapsed at Block 7 Sodiko at the Chateau d'Eau neighborhood in Douala. Inhabitants of the said locality blame the lack of strong pillars to support the wall as a root cause of its collapse.
The wall, because that wall was the first wall of that warehouse. When the road work was going on, they have to reduce this to send the wall behind. But the man did it. He built the wall behind and then abandoned the old wall. And that wall was nothing was supporting that wall. So because of that hard wind we had yesterday night, the wall went down. But what is sure is that we have called the attention of the owner of the wall.
After the tragic scene, the both victims were transferred to the Bonasama District Hospital. While on their way, the 19-year-old boy gave up the ghost. The mother was later transferred to the Lakentini Hospital, but was refused to be attended to by the doctors and nurses, leading to her death. We arrived at the Bonasama Hospital and received the first care, but since her situation was very critical, we took her to the Lakentini Hospital. While there, the doctor refused attending to her by saying the emergency unit was full and that she could not remove any patient from there. The doctor denied coming to check on the patient in the car. She just told us to take her to Garnison Militaire. I don't know if they know that their duty is to save lives and not the other way around. Due to the excruciating pain, the woman equally gave up the ghost.
Doctor tell me say what don't flop.
At the domicile of the victims, the family members and friends are all in tears. All the efforts made by the family members to come in contact with the owner of the building are all fruitless. It should be noted that this is not the first time that such a scene is occurring in the town of Douala.
And the United Nations Security Council has been scheduled to take place on the 13th of May 2019. Expectations are high as the escalating Anglophone crisis in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon will certainly be discussed. The United States has set up an informal cycle to try to resolve the armed conflict between the separatist Anglophones who are tired of discrimination and persecution of the Biya regime. Constructive dialogue is yet to be a reality or to come to limelight, despite claims by the head of state in his end of year message that dialogue started months ago, and he's equally saying persons of goodwill are already assisting gestures put in place by the state in order to help victims of the Anglophone crisis. And now we tell you how a series of consultative meetings are ongoing in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, between government authorities and members of the United Nations, all in a bid to better tackle the Anglophone crisis, which is deepening on a daily basis. Fomi Armstrong Sander has the details.
Consultative meetings between the Cameroonian government and its partners, notably the United Nations, have been intensified as a result of the deepening Anglophone crisis. The United Nations wants to gather enough information concerning the close to 3 years conflict in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon.
In the northwest-southwest, and how we can ensure that there is a better sharing of information on what we're doing, which locations and what kind of assistance we're providing to populations in need, to make sure that, while there's full respect of the neutrality of our operations, there is full transparency.
But the government on its part is firm that things are unfolding normally in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country, especially with regard to humanitarian aid directed to the affected population of the two English-speaking regions of the country, based on information received from local administrators in the regions. Minister Paul Atanganji of Territorial Administration said governments, apart from receiving corresponding reports from local administrators in the two English-speaking regions, will also put in place a system to rigorously control aid and ensure that it reaches the concerned population in the northwest and the southwest. The United Nations, which for now has not been able to agree with the government of Cameroon on how to coordinate respective activities in the regions hit by a conflict, is said to have agreed to descend to the northwest and southwest regions in the coming days alongside government officials, going by information revealed by Minister Paul Atanganji of Territorial Administration.
We now tell you how shortly before the end of our official visits to Cameroon, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has made a major encounters that was yesterday with members of the opposition. Michelle Bachelet yesterday met with the opposition, civil society, government officials, and church leaders who face to face with the senior UN official emptied their minds. The opposition used the opportunity to present concerns ranging from the electoral codes to what they qualify as crackdown from the Yaoundé administration. The ruling CPDM also presented efforts employed by its leader and President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, to address problems faced by Cameroonians. The opposition also called for international sanctions against Cameroon and some government officials over the escalating crisis in Cameroon's two English-speaking regions, notably the northwest and southwest, who are decrying marginalization and equally persecution from the Biya regime. And the following excerpt, I join you to take a listen to Edith Kawala, who is president of the Cameroon People's Party, and equally a religious leader, Gustave Ebai, who was speaking to reporters in Yaoundé.
So we were here to give an idea to Madame Bachelet about the situation in the country, to let her know that 7 out of the 10 regions in Cameroon are today faced with conflict. The acute conflict, which is in the northwest and southwest, and which today is touching the western region. The conflict in the extreme north against Boko Haram, and the situation in the Adamawa, the east and the north, which is from the Central African gangs that are raiding. So most Cameroonians today are facing a problem of violence. 2, we wanted to inform her that this in the context of these conflicts, grave human rights violations are being committed. In the northwest and southwest, we have seen the burning of villages and of homes. We have seen the extrajudiciary killings. We have seen arbitrary arrests. Over 1,000 people from the northwest and southwest today are in prison as we speak, with their rights being violated. This violation of rights also occurred in the extreme north. We have video of extrajudiciary killings in the extreme north.
Well, we try to discuss the fact that when a fabric is broken, the energy that can bring it together needs to be a superior energy. And based on the crisis we are facing right now, we are so divided that it needs God to bring everybody together. We propose to the High Commissioner that religious bodies are pleading with the government, with the civil society, with everybody concerned, and even the international bodies, to allow the religious authorities help them to help come out with a common situation. Because right now, the only actor who can be found in every small village in this country is a religious leader.
And according to the actors, the Biya regime has failed to accelerate the basic democratic processes. The government of Cameroon has equally violated the rights of many, especially those in the two English-speaking regions of the country and those who are supporting the CRM party of Professor Maurice Kamto, and that's the head of state and his government or other members making up the government have failed to provide basic services to the population. Take a listen to Edith Kabangwala of the CPP once more.
We have asked them to take sanctions against the individuals. There are individuals who are responsible for these atrocities and these violations in our country. They should see themselves suffering from a travel ban, from the freezing of their assets, from personalized queries to demand explanations from them why they gave these orders for these kinds of atrocities to be committed. And finally, we are asking for the international community that the government of Cameroon as a whole must be queried according to the treaties that we have signed, the international accords that we have signed. And this means going to various instances, including the Security Council of the United Nations, to demand for the rights of the Cameroonian citizen to be respected. We have put on the table political transition. This regime has failed woefully. It cannot solve these problems. Therefore, we are demanding today the departure of the regime. That is to be done by Cameroonians through non-violent demonstrations in mass. Then we will go to a national dialogue that will help us to discuss the Anglophone problem, but also many of the other problems that we are facing as a nation. We have asked them to take.
Another militant of the Social Democratic Front opposition political party of Nijon Frunzi has kicked the bucket. Comrade Chamandi, chief deputy mayor of the Douala 3 Council, gave up the ghost in the night of Saturday, May 4th, 2019, precisely at 11 p.m. at the Douala General Hospital after an illness. That's it for this edition of the 8 p.m. bilingual newscast on Equinox Television. Thanks so much for watching. Do have a splendid evening. Julien Beth Bissay, je vous souhaite une bonne soirée.
Merci Innocent Azé. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est la fin de cette édition bilingue du journal. Merci de l'avoir suivi et restez surtout scotchés sur le programme de la meilleure des télévisions.
Equinox Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.